London, the world's most diverse city. From every culture to every material, the city holds more than what meets the eye. Behind the hard shell of society, thick layers of history ooze through the streets, invisible to the naked eye. Join me as I unravel some of the fortunate and unfortunate tales and past of the cobbled pavement that many of you walk today. This is Forgotten London. To begin our journey, we start off in the capital's largest business district, the City of London. Hidden away behind the towering skyscrapers and beautiful architecture lies the magical church ruin, St. Dunstan in the east. Engulfed in entangled flora, this garden ruin offers the district the naturalistic green space that the rest of the area is missing. Originally built in the 10th century for Dunstan, a saint with a colourful past, both Dunstan himself and the church both boast their own difficult history. Dunstan once served as an important minister of state to several English kings and was the most popular saint in England for nearly 2 centuries. He gained fame from the many stories of his greatness, but most famously his defeat of the devil. This has since been referenced in English literature, including A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens in this folk rhyme. St. Dunstan, as the story goes, once pulled the devil by the nose, with red-hot tongs which made him roar, that he was heard 3 miles or more. In 1666, St. Dunstan in the East was one of the many buildings heavily damaged by the Great Fire of London. But rather than being rebuilt, the damaged church was patched up between 1668 and 1671. Years after, as a consolation prize, between 1695 and 1701, a steeple designed by Sir Christopher Wren was added, built in a Gothic style sympathetic to the main body of the church. However, in 1817, after it was found out that the weight of the nave roof had thrust the walls 7 inches out of the perpendicular, it was decided to rebuild the church as it had become unsafe to use. Its misfortune did not end here, as in 1941, during the Blitz, a German bombing campaign during the Second World War, the church was struck, destroying the majority of the church other than the tower, steeple and north and south walls, which stand today. Following the Second World War, it was decided by the Anglican Church that it would be too much hassle to rebuild, and they were forced to abandon it. Since then, in 1967, the City of London has transformed the ruins into a beautiful public park, and the loss of the church became London's gain. Heading back to the 18th century, tucked away behind the infamously swanky St. James Street in central London is the city's smallest square, named Pickering Place. Named after William Pickering, the founder of a coffee business on the premises, this square holds both a positive and shady past which is hidden from the tourists and citizens that walk by on a daily basis. When the gate is closed, there is no indication that you are at Pickering Place, and its history stays lying in the shadows. Originally, Graham Greene, an English novelist, short story writer and journalist, houses fictional character Colonel Daintree from the book The Human Factor here. However, in reality, Pickering Place was the base for the diplomatic office of the Independent Republic of Texas before it joined the United States in 1895. In the 18th century, Pickering Place was also a notorious area for gambling dens, bear baiting, and has said to have held many jewels over time, including the last in London. In addition to the many jewels, Buell Brummel, an infamous dandy and friend of King George IV, was also said to have fought here. As you walk into the courtyard, the array of original gaslights and unspoilt Georgian architecture take you back to the 1800s. However, unfortunately, as the area is now occupied by a restaurant, we were unable to get footage inside the square, but after taking a quick glance, I was quick to realise its quiet seclusion, making the square ideal for secrecy and criminal activity. Making our way over to the Paddington Head district, tucked away between Paddington and Maida Vale is where you will find the cute area named Little Venice. In 1801, after the arrival of the canal at Paddington, which was then just a small village on the outskirts of London, the area became an important waterways hub for travel as well as trade. However, despite this newfound waterway, the area was extremely dirty, being one of London's many run-down suburbs. For the first 150 years prior to it being called Little Venice, many new houses and new roads were built around the canal, hoping to redevelop the area and reject ownership of its past looks. With the arrival of the new exclusive Nash houses which were built along the canal, this finally drastically elevated the status of the entire area, diminishing any last reminiscence of its rundown past. In 1934, Marjorie Allingham gave the name Little Venice to a house overlooking the canal in her detective novel Death of a Ghost. Soon after, the name caught on to the local estate agents and the area's name was born. To this day, some people view Little Venice as a lovely oasis in the middle of London, but despite this, it has been considered to have been prettier in the past. As time has moved on, the Italianate houses that stood out boldly on the east side of Browning's Pool and the Georgian terraces to the south have now been lost, and the water space in the canal has been drastically reduced. Although in terms of tourism today, the area is popular, it is still something that is deliberately kept muted here, and the tourism was never allowed to flourish to the extent that it became the area's main industry. However, with the new development around the corner at Paddington, there are more commercial ventures than ever before. But despite this, the area has still managed to retain a charm that most other areas in London have now lost. As we have learnt today, history has taken its toll on the streets of London, and over time its troubled past and history has been disguised in the new developments and regeneration that expands over the city. Thank you for joining me, Christopher Cook, in exploring Forgotten London.